Hello and welcome to round 5 of Grand Prix Toronto. There you see the handshake. There you see Brad Nelson, 4-0 so far with an Abzan aggro deck. He got this from Brian Braun to win, and he gives all credit for this deck to BBD. He's like, BBD told me what to play. I didn't believe him. I think, he's not even convinced that he's got the right 75, but he has so much faith in Brian that that he's running it. Pretty aggressive take on the Abzan aggro archetype. Obviously, Warden of the First Tree coming in as the 1-drop at the bottom of the curve.
Yeah, we haven't been seeing much of that card. Brad actually went 9-1 through the standard portion of Pro Tour Dragon's Park here playing Abzan aggro. So this is definitely an animal that he's familiar with.
Yeah, we also saw this deck win the first week of Standard Super League on Tuesday night. Owen Turtenwald had 4 Warden of the First Tree in the version that he used to win on Tuesday.
It looks like Brad only playing 2 copies of Warden here, but still a very aggressive list.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Esper Dragons is setting a lot of what's going on in this metagame, and that a lot of people are attacking it by trying to go fast, whether it's red aggro or Abzan aggro. There's sort of 3 flavors between those archetypes that can potentially get in underneath the Esper Dragons lists. I would think, though, that the Megamorph matchups, these kind of mid-rangey green decks, should be decent in this matchup, right? How do you think this plays out?
One would expect that. The thing about Abzan is that, especially the aggressive versions, no matter what you're playing against, your matchup can't be that bad, right? Like, you're playing Thoughtseize, you're playing the premier removal spells of the format, you're playing all the best threats. It doesn't really matter if your opponent's cards necessarily match up well against yours, because all of your cards are so powerful that you can just draw them in the right order and happen to win. Also, we had a really interesting block on Brad's turn 3, where Gerard blocked his Den Protector to the Warden of the First Tree, just chump blocking.
Well, forcing Brad to spend his mana on Warden rather than committing a second creature to the board, I think is what Gerard was accomplishing there.
Yeah, but it's still quite interesting.
Well, Brad's going to spend his mana, right? Gerard played the Protector face up as a 2/1, and then chose to block. I mean, when he plays it face up, I'm sure it's because he's planning to block.
Yeah, but I mean, oftentimes it might be questionable whether or not it's worth throwing away that card
it's a good point.
That turn of your own, just for that Warden.
I feel like blocking is underrated. It seems like people don't, a lot of times when you block, you can sort of force your opponent to do whatever the thing is they're threatening to do. That can often disrupt them more than sort of allowing them, trying to be efficient, but allowing them to do what their plan was.
So Sidisi Brood Tyrant from Gerard. Pretty powerful 4-drop. The mirror to the Siege Rhino on the other end. But it looks like Brad's just going to chain Rhinos here, and we all know what happens when you draw multiple Rhinos.
Yeah, get a good look at Brad.
He has no shortage of experience working his way through these tough decisions.
Yeah, and Brad is 17th ranked at this point. He is up in the top 25 rankings now. That run at Standard Grand Prix has also been joined by some success on the Pro Tour. Former Player of the Year. It kind of fallen out of the range of the Platinum Pros for a little while, but seems to be back with a vengeance this season.
Brad has been putting up better and better numbers as he becomes a more focused player again, and I think that we're really starting to see that 2010 Brad again.
Yeah. I don't know what vintage of Gerard we've been seeing lately, but whatever vintage seems to win a lot. Wow, so later's Dromoka's Command. What is he going to manage to do? This is going to be what, a counter and a fight?
Yeah, I think he's just going to use
4/4 Warden beats up Sidisi, and therefore Rhino gets to trample over the zombie?
Yeah.
Pretty powerful for 2 mana.
Yeah, not too bad.
I mean, essentially, all that did was a removal spell for the Sidisi, but also gets the bonus +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, I mean, a Terminate that's also giving a +1/+1 counter to your creature
and could have been a Disenchant if that's what the situation had required, right?
Yeah, that card is pretty pushed. Here we see Dragonlord Silumgar go in the yard for Gerard, and a Death Misraptor, seemingly more relevant.
Players in many matches support to be Chandra Banner at the side of that table. Also, players in Commander Con number 24, Commander 24.
But none of those are going to the graveyard because of Anafen's in the Foremost. which is a pretty nice counter to this Wayfinder Sidisi strategy.
Man, Abzan aggro deck's just really good. I keep seeing Abzan aggro play against mid-range decks, and like 20 years of watching Magic has me thinking that mid-range beats aggro, right? That's how the world has always worked. But this particular aggro deck is just so powerful. Like every single card is so efficient and so good at what it does that suddenly, like, just being a little bit slower and having the sort of mid-range strategy does not actually seem good enough to beat it reliably.
And I mean, that's the thing about this Abzan aggro deck is that
Thoughtseize takes the Siege Rhino.
It's worth noting that it's kind of a mid-range deck in its own right. In terms
Yeah,
of
maybe that's the right way to look at it.
The power level of its cards. I mean, they're just so efficiently costed.
So just all the Abzan decks are mid-range decks, and this is just the more aggressive of the Abzan mid-range decks? That's your theory?
Yeah, I mean, when you really look at the list, it's really like he just like cut Elspeths for Warden of the First Trees, and then besides that, it's the same as a mid-range deck, right?
Warden's a lot more, well, it's got Rakshasa Death Dealer is the other key card.
That's true. It also has Death Dealer.
Going further in the action.
Yeah, Wingmate Rock's in the main here for Brad.
Really?
Yeah. That's not something we've seen in quite
No.
some time.
No, that is a bigger top end than these decks typically have. I mean, they normally max out at Siege Rhino.
2/5 drops here.
It's got a couple swords in there, too. Yeah, he is a little more mid-rangey. It does have the Death, yeah, 4 Death Dealer.
I think this is just the deck that he wrote about this week, actually. So
That Brian wrote about?
Brad wrote about it this week.
Wow, yeah, Gerard is back up against the wall, forced to chump block. Warden getting activated again.
Yeah, Brad pulling so far ahead here, and Gerard doesn't have any sort of, board sweeping effect in his deck.
No.
And, the card that could hypothetically get him out of this situation, Dragonlord Silumgar, has already been exiled thanks to inoffensive Warriors, so looking very, very rough for Gerard at this point. And perhaps that early Den Protector he knew that it was just about like holding on. Maybe he's trying to resolve something big, like a dig through time, find enough answers that he could actually battle his way through this.
I think Gerard believes the late game would be in his favor, and that it's a matter of surviving to get there, but he just can't. Tried his best, but dude, Abzan hits super hard. You just keep turning your creature sideways, and your opponent seemed to fall over and die more often than not. So Brad Nelson takes game 1.
I'm interested to see Brad's sideboard strategy here. At the Pro Tour, he had Elspeths on the board in his Abzan aggro deck, and he brought them in essentially every single round. And he was talking to me afterwards saying that, he really felt like that was the perfect place to be. But here we see a much different sideboard from Brad, something that's a more straightforward sideboard. At the same time, he's also bringing in 3 Den Protector. So the nice thing about having 3 Den Protector in your sideboard is that each of those individual sideboard cards that are high impact become better. So your sideboard plan can be to always bring in those Den Protectors, cut all your dead cards or all your worst cards, bring in some other stronger cards, and then you just have this much leaner machine.
Yeah, I talked to Brad a little bit this morning, and the sideboard was the place where I think he was really leaning on BBD. Brian Braun DeWin said, you need self-inflicted wound right now. Everybody else has got self-inflicted wound against you. You need self-inflicted wound so you don't fall behind by having worse removal spells than what your opponent has for the matchup. What Brad does not have is Glare of Heresy. Not only does he not have the Elspeths, he also doesn't have the Glares. He said it was the first time he'd played a deck with white mana and no Glares in the sideboard since the card's been printed.
I mean, going into Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir, in the testing Facebook group, Glare of Heresy was heralded as the best sideboard card going into Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. So seeing it as not included in Brad's deck list is pretty interesting.
He didn't sound confident in that decision when I was talking to him. And it was much more of this, this is what my boy tells me. Brian's been playing the hell out of this format. I think Brian's, really well tuned. I'm just going to believe, I'm going to trust him. Brad just moved. He, if you follow him on Twitter, you probably saw the pictures.
Yeah,
just moved into a new apartment. Right.
Yeah.
Since the Pro Tour, he spent 5 days at a wedding and moved into a new apartment. Has not done as much standard play testing for this event as he typically does.
Yeah, this is probably the least
That's the least prepared Brad's
the least
been in
prepared
years.
we've seen him in a long time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But hopes to have friends.
Especially friends as good as BBD. And the thing is that BBD has been progressing so much over the last 6 months because he's constantly been playing with Brad.
Right.
That, you know, Brad, even taking that step away, he can jump right back into it. And he has all of this up-to-date knowledge because there's a person who's been training with him who's on his level.
Yep.
Who's just been, you know, trolling the waters for all of those secrets.
Now, does Gerard have any good tech in the sideboard for this match?
Gerard's sideboarding plan should be interesting here. I mean, he's probably going to try to avoid Dromoka's command being too much of a blowout, so he's going to have to take the Corsair prefixes out of his deck.
Okay.
Because, you know, getting 2 for 1 for 2 mana when you've likely put, you know, 5 mana into 2 separate cards, that's just, there's no way to come back from that. It's game over. So I imagine the first thing that's getting cut is Corsair. Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, tremendously strong against Abzan decks when you're on the play, especially.
Okay. Even Abzan aggro?
I think so. I think you absolutely bring it in on the play.
Interesting.
On the draw, I would never bring it in against Abzan aggro.
But you would bring it in on the play here.
Yes,
Interesting.
definitely. I mean, it's rare they have, you know, any Warden. If they do have some, it's just...
You saw Warden in game 1, though, if you're Gerard.
But I don't think he's going to assume there are 4. I'm pretty confident that Gerard especially is the type of guy who I don't think Gerard would be on the play without Ashiok in the 60 cards against the deck with Siege Rhino.
Fair enough. Does he bring in a Disdainful Stroke for Siege Rhino?
Probably. I think Self-Inflicted Wound is really
that was the card
you know,
that seemed like a
big
straightforward one. Well, we're off.
There's 2 copies of Dromoka's Command in Brad's hand. That's a card that, even though, you know, we've already spoken at length about how powerful it is, it's really not good to draw in multiples, especially early.
Sure. Scry thought about it, but Scry did it top. Is that Urborg?
It's an Abzan Charm.
No, I meant Gerard's land drop for the turn.
Oh, yes, it is. It's interesting. I mean, both these players, you know, you'd expect them to be on the board at this point.
Brad especially. The no turn 2 play is not the plan for Abzan aggro.
So Gerard's playing what is either a Deathmist Raptor, a Den Protector, or a Stratostancer. Likely not a Deathmist Raptor. Though, it might be pretty smart to play Deathmist Raptor face down here if you think you're just going to eat a removal spell 100% of the time anyway.
Interesting. No turn 3 play for Brad either. He kept a hand with, what, good mana, Siege Rhino, and a couple commands?
I think it's a couple commands. I think he had an Abzan Charm at the ready also.
Okay.
So he had all of his mana, Abzan Charm, double Dromoka's thing, and a Siege Rhino. Seems...
Sure. Goes for end step, draw 2.
That
Now he can play turn 4 Siege Rhino potentially, but he's looking across at 3 untapped lands.
1 p.m.
And I don't think he's going to expect to be playing against much counter magic. No, Gerard is the
It's Gerard though. You don't know what.
Yeah.
You know he's got a Disdainful Stroke somewhere in the 75, right?
That's absolutely true. I don't think Gerard is. Since the Disdainful Stroke has been a card, I don't think Gerard's played less than one of it. You know,
probably never played more than
75.
2 or 3, but there's always a couple. Hero's Downfall though is the card that Gerard uses to stop Siege Rhino. Well,
and then we see
deal with the creature half of it anyway.
Urborg, Gerard wouldn't have had the correct mana to do that. Hadn't come in for that legendary land there.
And the morphs keep coming.
It'll be interesting to see what these turn out to be. It looks like Brad drew a Wingmate Rock, which seems like not a very exciting card here, especially, you know, as for a 5-drop when you're about to play your 5th land.
I mean, if either of those commands was a 2-mana creature, though, his draw is completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And awesome.
Absolutely.
Booster draft 27.
I mean, there's so much redundancy in the Abzan aggro list that it's sort of unusual to see it get this extreme of a draw, this creature light of a draw. Yeah, Rhino number 2, makes sense.
Cannot say that I disagree.
I mean, if this lives long enough to attack with, he's still in great shape. Is there a 3rd Rhino in his hand, too?
Yeah, maybe he's just going to play Rhinos still. The cows come home, you know?
Man down. Morphs come over, dropping Brad to 14.
It looks like he has a Warden, and you know, Gerard is stuck on lands here, so
Attention players.
he might play the Warden, pump it, and then use
round number 5.
Dromoka's Command.
Special. Pairings are going up for round
Try to pick
number
something
5.
off, but Gerard's Yavimaya Quest is a little deceptive because I guess he doesn't have the graveyard for Murderous Cut here.
Yeah, I like your line. Warden, pump it, Dromoka's Command now before Gerard can untap.
Yeah, I think that seems like the best course of action here.
+1/+1 and fight. Kills the 2nd one, if I'm not mistaken. It was a Den Protector.
Good choice. And now this is a 4/4 Warden. And
Oh, yeah.
it's, you know, 4/4 is really good against Gerard's deck. It's lots of 3/3s. Some of them have Death Touch,
Sure.
to be fair.
Do you
but
block if Gerard attacks?
Absolutely, right?
What if it's a Deathness Raptor and you don't get to trigger raid on your Wingmate Rock?
Oh, I guess you're right. There's just way too much upside to not blocking. So no, you don't. Forgot about the Wingmate Rock.
I mean, if it wasn't for Wingmate Rock, then sure. But I mean,
Yeah,
why would he play Deathness face down?
Yeah, why would he have done that? It doesn't make sense. But Gerard's like that.
Oh yeah, no, Gerard's very capable of playing a Deathness Raptor face down just to set up the misinformation. All right, here's Murderous Cut. Main phase, get that off the board. I wonder if Gerard knows he's got Wingmate Rocks in his deck.
It certainly seems like it the way he's playing. He's playing around it beautifully.
It's true. I mean, the deck was published on Star City this last week, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's likely that
Gerard
he does
probably
know
read that article and probably knows there's Wingmate Rocks in the list. Doesn't know there's one in Brad's hand, but knows there could be. Gerard's definitely, he's done main phase removal times just to make sure Brad doesn't get the chance to attack. Wow. Still, Brad is just draw 2 with Abzan Charm, draw 2 with Abzan Charm. He's able to do multiple things a turn while Gerard's been pinched on 4 mana. Gerard hasn't been able to even play Coursers with only 1 green mana. Urborg's fixing his black, but not his green. So that was Courser, and Dig?
Treasure Cruise.
Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, now, interesting though, I mean, Brad's hand, does he still have another command?
I believe so.
Yeah, so if Courser does come down, it's kind of a blowout in Brad's favor.
Yeah, Gerard's going to draw 3. Take a ride on the boat of gold.
You can't be too upset about drawing 3 for 3 mana. But then again, you know, when you're in this spot, it doesn't look great.
Well, he's got the 2nd green now, at least.
And now he's facing down against Wingmate Rock, though.
Yeah, but he is about to learn the bad news. Oh, wow. First the Fleece Mane. Then the Wingmate Rock. I mean, Brad's taken a lot of damage from his Pain lands and got beat up by those morphs for a little while. Still, though, seems to be in great shape here. I believe we're scurrying to get a Wingmate Rock token.
Find the bird.
There.
And now Gerard looks like he's in chump block mode already again. I mean, this matchup just seems pretty rough for him.
It does.
You you know, even his coursers, which are supposed to be like one of his best cards against these aggressive decks, are just such opportunities for Brad to completely take over the game, as if he hasn't already.
Yeah, this was not a great draw for Brad Nelson. I mean, neither player had a great draw. Brad's was kind of awkward. It was kind of creature light. He wasn't able to trigger Wingmate Rock until what, turn 7 or 8, whatever we're on. But Gerard was a little tight on mana, but I don't know. I mean, I guess if his draw had let him play an early courser, maybe get a couple extra lands that way.
I mean, he did have 2 double green cards in his hand and was stuck on 4 lands with only 1 green mana for a number of turns. So
the battle of the awkward draws, though, sure looks like it's going to go to Abzan aggro. Gerard does get to gain 1 life there. So Dromoka's command kills the Courser and one of the morphs for 2 mana.
yeah.
Fight that, kill that, make you sack an enchantment. And then is this attack lethal?
Oh,
This
it was
attack
a
is-
Deafness Raptor. Gerard.
Nice. Yeah, no, this attack is just lethal, right?
For those of you that want to sign up for the 4 p.m. seal deck, there are just about 10 minutes left to do so. Gary Wise will be playing this event, Canadian Hall of Famer.
Brad Nelson wins 2 games to 0.
Very fast win there for Brad Nelson.
Impressive.
And every player in the event will be receiving a pack of sleeves, courtesy of Ultimate
Number
Hammer.
17th ranked player
If you
wants to
sign
move
for that
up.
event, we have just
He is,
under
what,
10 minutes
chasing
remaining.
platinum, closing in on it, but not there yet, if I'm not mistaken?
I think that's correct. I think he is 6 points away from getting world championship,
Ah, that is a big game.
and that's
Yeah,
huge.
getting that spot at Worlds is gigantic.
Yeah. And
Meanwhile, let's go to our backup match. These guys are, this is Chris Fennell on the S for Dragons list on the left-hand side of your screen against Andrew Beckstrom on Abzan aggro on the right of your screen. So 2 of the fixtures in this metagame, and there you go. That was Andrew Beckstrom winning it, right?
Yeah.
Now, what game was that? Was that actually the end of a long game 1?
I believe so. Good
All
time
right.
to join into the match.
That was the end of a long game 1.
Oh no, that was game 2, so it's 1-1 now.
Fair enough. Looks like Chris won the first game. Abzan aggro came back to win the second game, and we'll get to watch game 3 from the beginning, which is nice.
Interesting, we're just watching Abzan aggro. I think this deck has performed so well on Magic Online over the course of the last week. It's really proven itself to be very strong against mono-red strategies. It's proving itself to be capable of beating the more controlling decks. Everything in between. I mean, you're a deck with Thoughtseize, good removal spells, and good creatures. It's hard to find a deck that's going to be naturally well positioned against you. Sure, you can get to 50%, but is getting to 50% good enough when you have to play against somebody like Brad?
Yeah.
Probably not.
So the answer to the Brad Nelson pursuing platinum, by the way, he has 43 pro points on the season, which means that he will become platinum as soon as he shows up in and plays the next Pro Tour. So Magic Origins, when he shows up, playing that event, I mean, he has to, I guess, not get DQ'd, but that just shouldn't be super hard.
Yeah, he's
that'll get him
never
platinum
gotten
for next
DQ'd or
season.
anything,
Yeah.
so.
Now, what he would like to do is add 3 points to his score for insta platinum.
Yes.
If he's platinum going into the Pro Tour,
Then he gets the benefits.
then he gets the benefits at the Pro Tour. He gets the appearance fee. That would certainly be, that's a big game. So picking up 3 points would be awesome for Brad. The other thing is Brad currently in the race to qualify for Worlds, he has the most pro points to not currently be in a spot. He is literally the bubble boy for Worlds right now. If the Worlds was happening tomorrow, Jacob Wilson on 44 pro points would get the last at-large spot, and Brad Nelson would be the first guy. No, Brad's in. I'm sorry. Brad is in one of the pass-down spots. There's currently 3 pass-down spots because, of course, Ari Lax is both top North America and won a Pro Tour. Martin Dang and Shahar Shenhar won World. So there's 3 pass-down spots right now. Brad is in one of the pass-down spots. So he's just barely above the bubble. The bubble's on 42 points, and he has 43. Anyway, he's got work to do if he wants to go to Worlds. He cannot rely on showing up to the Pro Tour and getting to 46. will get him platinum. It will not get him to Worlds. There's no way 46 will get him to Worlds. He needs to be, closer to 50, I would think.
Yeah, he was lamenting to me how close he is to me at Worlds, saying that he feels compelled to go to Grand Prix Atlantic City because of his situation, but at the same time,
funny.
He was supposed to have a vacation planned, so now he's got to work his way around that.
Yeah, Chris Fennell knows that pain. He was the bubble boy at Worlds last year. Did not actually get to play.
Still has to do a little more work for gold. Not that far off from it.
Okay.
Will likely hit it by the end of the year. I think he's pretty much guaranteed to hit it by the end of the year as long as something crazy doesn't happen. But he would like to hit platinum, obviously. I mean, he is such a strong limited player. And,
yeah, platinum's really the point where the Pro Tour, playing Magic, be it on the Pro Tour, becomes a hobby that pays you. Instead of being a hobby, it becomes a source of decent amounts of money.
Platinum is when you can start calling yourself a pro.
Yeah,
you can do that at gold.
Gold, you're qualified to go to everything at gold.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily guaranteed enough money to support yourself if you're not doing anything else. All right, here's Thoughtseize from Chris Fennell. Taking a look. Beckstrom's got a Thoughtseize of his own, a Tasigur, a second Tasigur, an Abzan Charm. What do you take here?
He doesn't have... This is weird. He didn't play the Lion on turn 2?
Well, he played a Temple.
Instead of playing
He
Heath Lion?
chose to play a Scry land instead of cracking a fetch land for Fleeceman Lion. He also did not play his Thoughtseize on turn 2.
Interesting. Maybe he's trying to lead the Thoughtseize into the Lion.
I mean, he certainly set himself up to go Thoughtseize plus Lion on turn 3, but yeah, Chris is just like, I don't know why this Fleeceman Lion is still in your hand, but I'm taking it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like quite the deal for Chris, getting to take, like, the only threat that Andrew has for the following turn. And
definitely.
Yeah, so now Andrew's in a place where he's not even putting threats on the table. And Chris Fennell, I mean, he's a control deck. This is delightful for him. And he has those 2 copies of Silumgar Scorn in his hand. And even though he doesn't have a dragon currently, Andrew, he doesn't have anything to play. He's going to be forced to play right into that Force Spike.
Do you think Beckstrom's going to go end step Abzan Charm here? Run that into Silumgar Scorn?
I don't know. I think Chris might not counter that.
I was going to say, it's actually, I think I like this play end step because I don't know if Chris is supposed to counter it. And he's like, all right, I don't have a dragon. I get to Force Spike something decent. I'll take it. I mean, he opens himself up to tap out for top deck Siege Rhino here, I think is the thing that Chris is risking. But he knows there was no Siege Rhino 2 turns ago, so he's okay with that risk. Now,
pretty good hand here for Fennell.
What do you take with this Thoughtseize if you're Andrew? Downfall, Bileblight? Is that prerogative?
Do we know what's in Beckstrom's hand? No, it's Scorn.
Oh, it's Scorn. It's the second
Downfall, Bileblight. You definitely do not take the Scorn. You probably just take the Downfall. I mean, he can't cast Bileblight or Downfall right now. He doesn't have double black. So both those cards are kind of cold in his hand.
He's polluted Delta in his hand.
Oh, you're right.
He does double black. So he goes Downfall. And the Fleeceman Lion that he just drew. That's got to get Bile-Blighted, yeah. Well, Crux of Fate off the top, but I think you just Bile-Blight, right?
Yeah, I mean, then you can leave open Scorn.
Oh yeah, you can Bile-Blight with Scorn up. Also, Beckstrom knows about your Bile-Blight. I mean, I guess you can get into this weird dance where they have to leave. Dance. Yeah, you can get in the Fleeceman dance where once Beckstrom has 5 mana, he never wants to tap it because Bile-Blight can happen as a response. But it also means you can't Bile-Blight because they can Monstrous as a response. I think I would just play Polluted Delta here and Bile-Blight.
It does give Chris a lot of turns if he goes into that dance. And that might be what he needs. So
Yeah, he's willing to dance.
The thing I like about this play from Fennell is that against some players, like especially on Magic Online, I've noticed that when I make a play like this, my opponent will, you know, often just lose to known information later on in the game.
Okay.
Like right now, Beckstrom obviously not going to walk into a Bile Blight. He's content to just say go over and over again. Maybe threaten Monstrous on an end step, try to get Chris to tap all of his black mana, but doesn't seem particularly likely that he has to do anything. He's applying pressure.
Oh, foul talk invocation. Well, that changes the dance a little bit.
Quite a bit. And you know, here now we have Fennell with the ability to, you know, deal with the line even if it does get monstrous. Because he still only has 2 black mana available, so he can cast the Bile Blight and then he'll have to wait till the next turn to use Foul Tongue Invocation. Or he can just Foul Tongue it right off the bat.
I mean, he can't afford to take this dance for too much longer. Interesting, Beckstrom taps one of his 5 for a duress. He's basically baiting the Bile Blight here? Doesn't he just know Chris is going to Bile Blight as a response?
It's a really nice Bile Blight for Chris.
Andrew's just like, I don't feel like dancing. Enough of this. I'm willing to trade my creature for your removal spell as long as I get another card out of your hand. You like Bile Blight as the response and not Foul Tongue Invocation?
Absolutely, yeah. I think Invocation has some pretty nice applications.
Well, I mean, you're probably losing it to Duress, which he does, in fact, lose to Duress.
Oh, I guess you're right. He'd take 1 less damage from the land.
The Pain land is the reason why Foul Tongue would not have required him to tap Caves of Koilos for Pain.
I guess the major argument is that, you know, Beckstrom might not be inclined to take the Bile Blight. Whereas, like, if you fire off that Foul Tongue Invocation and then you have Bile Blight Scorn in your hand, he might just go ahead and take the Scorn. Whereas if you leave Foul Tongue Scorn in your hand, he has to take the Invocation. You know?
Tasigur with 1 available to pay for Silumgar Scorn.
Yeah, so leaving open that 1 mana, a wise decision here. He has full knowledge currently of, or no, he only knows about the Scorn. Is that correct?
He just duressed him this turn.
Okay.
So yeah, he has full knowledge.
Attention Magic players, with Gary Mai and Todd Davis. That's Gary Mai and Todd Davis. Please report to the side event waiting area.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, there's the crux. Andrew knew about it. Chris knew that he knew, but you're not going to let him untap with Tasigur. Andrew also knew that he had a Siege Rhino coming, I believe, from a Scryland. Maybe not. Maybe that was just lucky top deck. No, it was a Scryland, yeah. Siege Rhino straight off the top and into play.
Hey, Chris, looking like he's on the ropes. I mean,
He is.
He's at Haven, but he doesn't have a dragon to go get with it. And
Crunch. Did you top deck an answer?
Oh, this is a pretty good one.
Off the top. It's like a Magic Online where their cards start being highlighted in red.
Yeah, it's just, you know it's coming.
Oh, maybe it's only a dig. Yeah, this is a dig. I was thinking this was a Murderous Cut.
I think dig might be worse than Murderous Cut here,
Maybe.
right?
I mean, you still got a chance, right? They could whiff. I mean, Beckstrom's out of gas. Siege Rhino is, I believe, the last threat in his hand. All right, 1, 2, 3, and 5 cards. Dig through time. He's left open enough mana for either Murderous Cut or Hero's Downfall. I think there's 1 card in the yard, but of course the dig will go to the yard to be the 5th card for the 5th mana for any potential cuts. Chris looking at his 7. It's on 5 life. Rhino hits into 1. He really wants to answer the Rhino.
The Rhino currently attacking. It's not like he needs another turn. It's
Oh,
not,
yeah.
And it looks like
Can
he
we
has-
see? There's a Dragon Lord. Is that Utter End?
I see it.
Which he does not have the mana for?
I see Dragon Lord, Ojutai. I see Silumgar, the Drifting Death. I see some lands. Not sure I saw a single removal spell in there that actually deals with Rhino.
I thought I saw an Utter End.
Okay, yes, there is.
But he doesn't have 4. I mean, it only deals with him next turn. I mean, he can go to 1 and then Utter End, which I guess he has to do. And then what? Do you take another dig? Or do you take a dragon? I think you take a dragon,
I
right?
think you take a dragon.
Drifting Death or Ojutai?
I would take Ojutai. It costs less mana.
Drifting Death is hexproof, though.
So does
I like-
Ojutai.
Well, sure. Sometimes. Drifting Death can block Siege Rhino. Ojutai can only trade with it.
That's true.
I think he took Drifting Death.
Okay.
All right, dig resolves, and now, much to Beckstrom's surprise, oh, take 4? Great.
The other thing about taking Ojutai is that if you do have a 7th land on the following turn, like if you draw an untapped land, then you can cast the Ojutai and have.
Jeez.
Well, that's really, really very good.
Yeah, Utter End plus, you're not going to get to play your dragon. I think Chris has to top deck Murderous Cut. Maybe he can make the mana work with a downfall if he has a land in his hand. But based on what we saw, I think he needs a top deck or he's dead.
Yes, we know about the other end, but that's not close to good enough. He needs a Crux, something like that. Elspeth would be very good. I don't think he's playing
Nope.
that card, though. And that's it.
Andy Beckstrom wins, moves to 5-0. Abzan Aggro looking pretty good this round.
Yeah.
One in Brad Nelson's hands, one in Andy Beckstrom's hands. Chris Fennell still in, 4-1.